Welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Dr. Angel Storm. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am here with a very special guest for you, Dr. Ben Edwards. He is the founder of both Veritas Medical and Veritas Wellness. He is a medical physician. He is here to talk to us about recovering physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually from abuse, and he's taking the standpoint as a medical doctor. So without further ado, let me bring on Dr. Ben Edwards. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, Angel, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Same. I feel the exact same. Thank you for making time. You know, we were talking a little bit before we started streaming, and I am really interested in your approach to stewarding our physical bodies, especially when we recognize maybe the way that we were doing things previously or that we're used to doing things is not working anymore, and that causes some symptoms in our bodies to alert us to the fact that, hey, we're not doing things quite right. Can you tell me a little bit about how you ended up starting, Veritas Medical and Veritas Wellness?
Sure. So I wasn't looking to start anything holistic or alternative. I grew up very, very conservative. Both my granddads were medical doctors. So I didn't even know what a chiropractor did. I wasn't looking to do anything different. So I went to UT Houston Medical School, graduated in 2002, and then Waco Family Practice Residency, and they trained me to be a small town country doctor. That was my dream. So I ended up in a small town in West Texas, Post Texas, and was there for 7 years doing what I was trained to do. And by the world standards, I would say, successfully, but that meant financially. So it was a county clinic, meaning lots of Medicare and Medicaid payers, and they don't pay well. So you got to see volume. So I saw a patient every 7 minutes was the average. So I'd see 40 or 50 patients a day. I'd cover the nursing home, the county jail, the juvenile detention center, the Friday night football game, team doctor, all the house calls, all that stuff. And just, thought I was doing the right thing. Again, doing what I was trained to do. And the money was there. The county clinic was now making money. They weren't running a deficit. The taxpayers were off the hook. They built a brand new clinic, $1 million clinic, paid it off in a year. A year after that, they had $1 million in their bank account, the healthcare district bank account, because we were a self-sufficient clinic now, and the taxpayer money could just grow in the bank account. The Washington Post put us on the front page that, hey, this clinic is successful. It's how you can run a small town clinic, Medicaid, Medicare, make it work. So that was 7 years of my wife and I living there in the small town, raising our kids. Had 4 kids at the time. And my nurse practitioner, disease, met a doctor at a bed and breakfast away for the weekend with his wife, and this doctor said, hey, your celiac disease that you requested a gluten-free pancake for, that can be reversed. You can be cured of that. I'll help show you how to do that. And of course, my nurse practitioner's initial response was, you're crazy, that you can't reverse that. It's incurable. But the doctor went on to talk to my nurse practitioner and really explain to him some things about how God designed the body to function if you give it what it needs and avoid what it doesn't. And it's a long story, but to make it short, my nurse practitioner implemented these things over 3 to 4 months. He got well. He came to me and told me he was well. I laughed at him, said, what are you talking about? There's no cure for celiac. You just need to eat gluten-free the rest of your life. That's what they told us. That's what they taught us. That's the answer. And he didn't think that anymore. So he went to the break room. The drug reps had brought breakfast burritos, and he ate one, brought it back to the nurse's station, and ate one right in front of me. So, of course, tortilla with wheat, gluten, and he was fine. He didn't get sick. His stomach didn't ache. He wasn't in the bathroom with, having trouble. And then he ate a hamburger for lunch and a cookie that afternoon that a drug rep brought. So that's 3 different exposures in the same day, which normally would have sent him into a major flare. And he was fine. So in that moment, I guess I was faced with this decision, or I thought I need to make a decision here on, am I going to ignore this? or kind of write it off as just a one-off, little miracle thing. God decided to heal him for some reason in that moment. Or did all the things he actually did to try to steward his body better result in his body functioning better and he could actually digest wheat now and gluten? And I decided on that I think what he did probably impacted his outcome. So now I've got to, for my next celiac patient, I've got to decide, do I just give them the one option, eat gluten-free the rest of your life? Or do I give them the two options, eat gluten-free or talk to my nurse practitioner and do what he did? Maybe it'll help you too. I don't know. I don't know anything about it. So that was a decision point where I decided to kind of open my mind and get curious and explore this possibility that there's something out there that I wasn't taught at MD Anderson, UT Houston Medical School. And that led me to call that doctor at the bed and breakfast. And we go real deep in this conversation if you want to, but I'll try to speed it up because I spent about a year talking to him on the phone and just couldn't believe it. It's that cognitive dissonance thing where, there's no way this can't be. How could what you're saying be true when the medical school education taught me this and all my colleagues and friends and doctor friends? I mean, there's just no way. And so I went round and round and round with him for a year on the phone. And he finally said, Ben, fine, just send me your 10 sickest patients. The ones that well, they're sick, their diseases, you've written all the prescriptions for them, you've referred them to all the specialists, they've been everywhere, tried everything, and they're still sick. The worst fibromyalgia, the worst lupus, the worst type 2 diabetic that needs insulin and is refusing insulin, the worst, you name it, fill in the blank, depression. I mean, just so many different things. And so I had these 10 really sick patients. They went and saw him. They came back. Every one of them was well, including that diabetic 74-year-old guy was off all of his meds except for half of one blood pressure pill, and his blood sugar was normal. He's no longer diabetic in 3 or 4 months. He reverses his diabetes, off his meds, normal blood sugar. And I just thought, man, what in the world is this? But I couldn't argue with the results. They're right in front of me. There's my own patients. They were well. And that's what I went to medical school to do, help people get well. I didn't realize, though, and I'd say all doctors don't realize, when they walk across that stage, get their diploma, have their MD initials now behind their name, get their white coat, that they assume their United States medical school, the best, quote unquote, which we're not the best, but thinking we're the best. I just learned everything there is to go out to West Texas and help people. Well, that was a wrong assumption, and I didn't know that at the time. So I'm working under this model and mindset that I know it all because they taught me everything. Because if there's anything else that could help this patient, they would have taught me. So this natural stuff, alternative, holistic, whatever, that can't be true, because if it were true, they would have taught me that. Now, I was totally naive, completely naive to the ways of the world. But so that was 12 years ago. And I started to learn from that doctor, and I started implementing it in that clinic. And the difference with this type of medicine, when you try to get to the root cause, you've got to spend time with the patient. You got 1 to 2 hours you got to spend with these patients. And in a conventional model that insurance covers, you get 7 minutes. So in that model, in that county clinic, I went to the board and I just told them, I've learned this. It's really helping people. I understand it's not going to work here because I'm going to need 2-hour visits for a new patient, 1 hour for a follow-up. It ain't going to work. I mean, the money's just going to go kaput. I said, I won't advertise it, but I'm not going to hide it. If someone asks me to help them with the truth and get to the root of their acid reflux, get to the root of their rheumatoid arthritis, get to the root of their lupus or fill in the blank, diabetes, hypertension, you name it, I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to try to help them through that. And it's going to take time. And anyways, long story short, that didn't work. And they fired me on a Friday afternoon, said, get out and be out by Monday morning. So I called my wife and said, all right, meet me at the clinic with the truck because we got loaded up with all our stuff. And here we go. So we were laying in bed a couple nights later, and I was just thinking, man, what we're doing, what I'm learning is just the truth. And I knew I was going to start my own clinic, cash only, get one of the little square things on my phone where I could swipe a credit card, I rented a little office in downtown Post, Texas from the Farm Bureau insurance agent. She had an extra room, $100 a month. I bought a used office chair and desk and laptop for like $500. I'm all in on this, and just started seeing patients. But veritas, the truth, Latin for truth. I told my wife, what we're doing is just the truth. So we looked up what's the Greek and what's Latin for truth, and then we looked up to see if veritasmedical.com was taken. It wasn't, so I grabbed it, and we started Veritas Medical 12 years ago. And then it just grew from there, word of mouth. Hired a nurse practitioner and a PA to help me, then hired another, and we got up to about 9 nurse practitioners, 3 different clinics across West Texas over 12 years. It's just grown and grown and grown. And we just really teach people stewardship, really is what it boils down to. The body's designed a certain way, and it will function. It will do what it's supposed to do. When you get a paper cut, you don't worry about it, because you know that thing's going to put a little clot in a scab and be fine. It's that new skin's going to grow. My wife, bless her heart, just tripped over our corgi dog the other night, about a week ago, fell, broke her arm. We worry about it because it hurts, but we're not worried that it's not going to grow back together. That bone knits back together. It's amazing. Well, the body knows how to keep blood sugar down, blood pressure down, inflammation down, the immune system, autoimmune disease. Why would the immune system, after 30 years of recognizing your thyroid, let's say, wake up one day and decide to attack your thyroid? Hashimoto's. Makes no sense. There's got to be a reason and a trigger, a root cause. And there is. And so we just try to teach on that. Medical school does not teach that. They teach us management, not resolution. Manage asthma, manage blood pressure, manage high blood sugar, manage everything. And what root cause medicine does is get to the root and try to fix it, but it's really the body doing the fixing. We can kind of come alongside and try to assist that and try to prop people up, but honestly, it's their own diet and lifestyle. Sitting all day impacts your genes. Sunshine impacts your genes. Stress, not getting enough oxygen all night because you're mouth breathing or you've got sleep apnea, your airway's compromised. It's these basic things that turn genes on and off, turn mitochondria up or down. And in fact, even your thinking, a thought rooted in bitterness, unforgiveness, and anger will compress that double helix DNA, the chromosome, and affect genetic expression. It's incredible. The water that your mitochondria floats in, the water your DNA floats in, the water your cell floats in. Every 10th molecule in your body, if you lined them all up and started counting, every 10th molecule is something besides water. You're mostly water. And this water is impacted by your thinking. It's amazing. So these basic things really do impact health greatly. I didn't learn any of that in medical school. I got 2 hours of nutrition in 4 years of medical school. Doctors just don't know that they are just glorified pharmacologists. They're trained how to do protocol medicine. You've got high blood sugar. Here's your high blood sugar pill. Well, high blood sugar is a symptom. It's not a disease. Type 2 diabetes is a consequence or a symptom of an underlying thing. And that underlying thing is insulin resistance. That's rooted in mitochondrial insufficiency, deficiency. And that's rooted in diet, lifestyle, and thinking. So we teach people how to not be a standard American is what we try to do. And then the body fixes itself. It's really awesome. Now, there's a green version of symptom management. I can give you an herb that'll get your blood sugar to come down. That herb's called berberine. Or I can get my prescription pad and write for metformin. That's a pharmaceutical. They both will push that sugar down. That's both treating a symptom, though. Berberine's just a green version of doing that. So, less side effects. And anyways, we don't just want to do the green version of symptom management. We want to fix it.
Wow. Okay. I love so much about what you just said. First of all, I love the title as well of your podcast, You Are the Cure. Right? The cure, you are both the cause and the effect in what's going on. And that's the beauty of it, right? Because if it was outside of you, you'd have to wait until you you met that person, or you got that thing, or you had enough money, or whatever it was. And no, the truth is you came to this planet with everything that you need, which is, it's hands down true across every single aspect of life. One of the things that I tell my clients that you mentioned, like if you cut yourself with you get a paper cut, your body is going to heal itself. I tell my clients, your world forgives you quickly. It's you who doesn't forgive you quickly. The second that you recognize something is wrong, the natural world's response to that is, let's fix it. Let's come back to homeostasis. And when you were talking about the double helix, I was just looking at this Heart Math Institute. Are you familiar with the Heart Math?
Yes.
And they were talking about the double helix, how it gets compressed and it tightens and it actually shuts off epigenetics from fear, any kind of fear. So anger, any kind of trauma, any kind of bitterness, unforgiveness, that kind of thing. And it doesn't allow you to express who you naturally are. And so how interesting when you start with gratitude, love, it loosens and it opens back up and it starts turning back on genes. So like the rule, that got it shut off could also get it turned back on, which just is incredible.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a lot easier to understand this and see this in the physical, which there's plenty of evidence of that. We can look at ancestral tribes who are eating and living in a natural ancestral way. They had zero diseases, no chronic diseases at all, no malignancies, no hypertension, no arthritis, no mental disease. And then as soon as we introduced modern food, is what Weston A. Price called it, which is processed white flour and sugar, within one generation, the natives would start to develop these chronic conditions. And we saw this in America because around the early 1900s, when our foods started to change, seed oils, cotton seed was the first one, got compressed, got the oil out of it. It was an industrial lubricant till they decided they could bleach it, hydrogenate it, make it look pretty, and turn it into clean lard. But these seed oils, canola, which is rapeseed, soybean, corn oil, these seed oils, those came in the early 1900s. Then we started sifting the flour, fresh milled flour. They started separating it because it goes rancid. Well, and we could go down that path if you want to, but my point is when we change that food, heart attacks started coming. 1912 was the first heart attack in America. And you can just track all this when modern food started changing things and diseases came. So genes don't change that fast. The Pima Indians, Southeast Arizona, had 0 cases of type 2 diabetes in the whole history of their tribe. That was pre-World War II. Today, 50% of their tribe's diabetic. And we can go example after example after example around the world where the genes don't change that fast. It's not the genes. It's epi. It's outside. Epi means above or outside the genes. And it's the change in the food, the change in the drinks, the change in our lifestyle, meaning we sit all the time in front of a screen under artificial light instead of sunshine. There's lots of course, toxins that can turn things on and off. So the I'm a victim of my genes, that's completely debunked. It's no longer true. Never been true. We thought it was for a while. And so there's a lot of people have to unpack that to understand, no, they have total power and control over this thing. They're in control of, I say genes are books on a bookshelf. Go into a library, there's 100,000 books up there. We have about 23,000 genes, but they're books on a bookshelf. You're in charge of telling the librarian which shelf to go to, which book to go to, which page to go to, which paragraph to read, and then read that, and then I'll do what it says. That's you. I mean, we're in control of what gene are we going to turn on and turn off. Dean Ornish at UCLA, he did a biopsy of prostate cancer genes or prostate cancer glands in guys with prostate cancer. And he looked at all the genes to see which ones are turned on, which ones are turned off. The prostate cancer grow gene was turned on. The cancer suppressor gene was turned off. He puts them through a few months of stress management and diet change. He goes back, does another biopsy. The prostate cancer grow gene had turned off and the cancer suppressor gene flipped on. So it was clear just through diet and lifestyle, the stress management diet. And again, repeat it over and over and over and over And then Bruce Lipton, Biology of Belief, and others have shown how a thought will do the same thing. So
Yes.
we just need the knowledge, then we need to walk this out and understand how much power we do have. And yeah, we can think and eat our way into disease, and we can think and eat our way out of it. Not just eat, but move, hydrate. I mean, it's a lot of different pieces of the stewardship. But yeah, you're right on it. We have control over that.
And it's really incredible when we start getting more connected to our body. We're living in it all day, and most of us don't even know what all the things it could do. You know, just even hearing that your genes are not just like reading, they're reading and writing, right? So you can actually tell the gene that read and write this, instead of just like, oh, it's just doing, we can't control it. No, we can absolutely control it. And if we don't like it, we can change it. At any point, we could just change it, just as easily as we change our thoughts or change our clothes. We can actually change the gene expression, which is just amazing. And that sounds a lot more in line, that belief sounds a lot more in line like how our creator would create us, because there's no way that he would just say like, well, you're just stuck with that now. There's no redemption in that. There's no opportunity for restoration in that. So I love the mission that you're on there. Have you ever seen, kind of switching gears here, have you ever seen such a thing where the body is under so much stress that it kind of suppresses any kind of thing from expressing that there's stuff going on in the body until there's that release of stress? Because what I see in my clients is a lot of times they notice like, oh, I'm not sleeping that good, or I do have anxiety or whatever. But the second that they actually move forward to separate from a narcissist and start a different life, their body is like, now it's got inflammation and arthritis, or we have, hysterectomy recommendations, or we've got hair loss. And now all of a sudden it's all these symptoms that they did not have before. So have you seen stuff like that before?
Yes, I have. And I mean, can't lay out every single detail of that, but I believe a lot of it is the steroid effect. If someone's, got bad allergies or real bad, I don't know, shoulder, knee, and you get a steroid shot, cortisone or Kenalog shot, and that steroid just knocked that inflammation right down and really suppress stuff. Well, you make a natural steroid called cortisol, and that gets produced when you're under this fight or flight mentality, when you're under stress, fight or flight mode, adrenaline, cortisol. And so there is that kind of suppressive effect. And then as that comes down, you could see kind of a rebound effect where all this disorder starts to manifest. So we've seen that. We've seen also just a chronic cortisol elevation after, months and months and even years of that. High cortisol, your body can't live in that high cortisol state, and it'll actually start to shut itself down. Like neurons in the brain, they're damaged by high cortisol. So the brain will tell the adrenal glands, hey, cut it out, shut it down, and it'll actually start to turn those things down, and the cortisol will come down as a self-protection thing. And that's kind of more towards the end stage of a chronic stress state for a long, long time. So these things manifest in different ways, and some people will be real sick when they're in the high cortisol. Some won't get sick till the cortisol comes down. So, yeah. But there's a way to heal from that too.
Yes, exactly. And I've shared on this channel before. Actually, I took time off from doing YouTube or really working with one-on-one clients for a while whenever I had adrenal fatigue. My doctor had said adrenal fatigue, but I actually didn't know anything was going on until I stopped working. Working was my drug that was happening here, and it was something that I enjoy doing, but it was just so out of balance that I didn't even know it was out of balance. But when I stopped is really when I noticed all these other symptoms where it's like, oh wow, all that was going on in my body without me being aware of it. And it just really made me look at like, wow, I've been living in this body for 37 years at the time, and never knew that this was causing damage to me. And it really you start learning more about honor like more about really honoring how you were created instead of hustle, like in this, go after it, get all the things and do all the things. And you really start to love yourself more because you didn't know that you weren't loving yourself with the things that you were doing prior to that. It was like how you were talking about how they teach you in medical school. You just thought, hey, this is the normal thing. This is how everybody does it. And then when you learn the truth, it's like you can't not unsee the truth now, and you have to start following the things that are going to lead you down the path of wellness and life. And even if it's painful in the beginning to kind of shed those old habits and so forth. When you're working with clients, do you do any kind of thing that has to do with the way that they think about stuff? Do you help them reprogram or retrain them in the way that they were taught about, different things?
For sure. I mean, depending on what the issue is, what they're most fearful of. I mean, I had one sweet little old grandma the other day, Spanish speaking lady, and I speak just a little bit of Spanish. So I tried to break the ice and have some conversation, but really had to use her daughter to interpret. But her fear was over cholesterol. And because wasn't told the truth about cholesterol, and a doctor previously had told her she's probably going to die from a stroke or heart attack because her cholesterol was so high. Well, that just wasn't the truth. So for that instance, I mean, just a matter of bringing what's the truth about cholesterol, and that just brought relief to her. A lot of times, though, it's a deeper thing. People have beliefs about themselves and about God that aren't exactly accurate, and it usually because we weren't taught and trained up the right way. Either religion influenced us too much, or man influenced too much somehow. But I believe the Creator made us specific, uniquely. It says, I put you in your mama's womb, I knew you. And that word knew you, and put a call on your life. That's a specific thing. So I'm seeing that as God made us unique, individual, specific. And it says that later in Scripture, the body, which is all of us together, we're all unique. The hand, the foot, the nose, the mouth, the ear, they're all different. They're all unique. So there's no comparison, no competition. It's impossible to have comparison and competition. If every single thing's unique, you can't compare two unique things. So it's these deeper, more personal and spiritual journey that people need to go on. Because I'll give you an example. If you're a youngster at 6, 7 years old, an event happens in your life where you feel rejected, well, I mean, that's not the truth. You can believe that. And it happened with me in kindergarten. I put these little plastic handcuffs on my hand behind my back, and it's time to circle up to say the pledge. And I couldn't get my hand on my heart because I'm handcuffed. And the teachers, didn't make a big deal about it, and got it undone real quick without a key and said, now don't do that again. Of course, I thought, well, you got it undone that fast without a key. I can too. And the next day I did it again. And I couldn't figure it out. So then she was a little more aggressive in her, hey, don't do that anymore. I told you yesterday. Well, I picked up this thought of rejection. Sounds so stupid and simple. But if I actually believe this about myself, I'm rejected, it's going to drive an emotion in me of I want to be accepted and loved. Well, then real quick, I pick up on in first grade when I make all A's, everybody praises me and likes me more when I perform. And so I'm going to make all A's every time. When I get first place in the arts, craft, and science fair, when I get MVP of the soccer tournament, when I get first chair in band, first team on the basketball team, I get praised and accolades. And that fills up that little emotion of rejection where I'm wanting to be accepted. And when I perform, I get accepted. So boom, there's another filter. I've got to perform to be loved. And then I pick up real early, first, second grade. Then when I follow all the rules, don't get in detention, just keep everybody happy. Keep my parents happy, teachers happy, coaches happy, keep all my friends happy. If I can keep everybody happy, then they give me some feedback, body language and verbal and whatever feedback that they like me. There's a filter, people pleasing. So that's the kind of thing, and that's just one example. We walk through life with these filters that rooted in a lie of rejection, and I got to perform and people please to deal with that unresolved emotional conflict of rejection. And so we make decisions rooted based off these filters. So that's where we end up going a lot of times with patients. And I really think what that even does at the mitochondrial level, I think our mitochondria, which if you don't know what that is, that's your carburetor basically in the cell that makes energy. And if you were to Google any disease, autoimmune diseases, cancer, heart attacks, autism, depression, whatever, plus the word mitochondria, you'll see a connection. I mean, there's books written on pretty much every disease now. People, the scientists, smart guys are saying it's all mitochondrial dysfunction. The cells can't make energy. I believe that our thoughts and these lies, these filters, actually change the ability of that mitochondria to take fuel from what you eat and take oxygen from what you breathe and make energy, ATP. I think it's actually impeded by these beliefs that aren't true. So that's a whole nother discussion and goes into identity. And of course, it's personal spiritual journey, but a lot of our patients are believers. And even if they're not, that's fine. We can talk about these things in other terms. But that, to me, it's a big deal. It's kind of the heart of most issues. If we're not seeing our creator clearly, we're not seeing who he says we are clearly, then we're going to be off in our relationship with ourselves, with others, with everything. And it'll manifest physically.
Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement with you on that. And in fact, that is something that I teach my clients first off, because, my goal isn't to take them from a negative place to a neutral place to where they were before they met the narcissist, but it's to take them from a negative place to where they should actually be. And because the narcissist wasn't the first thing that they ran into, that was the problem. The problem was all those filters that you talked about that kept getting another layer, and we kept getting deeper and deeper into this lie that we were living without even recognizing I'm betraying myself. I'm betraying the creation that I was created to be. And I definitely agree with you when you're saying that, because there's no you can't have one thing without having something else being affected. So you can't believe something without there being another effect of that, another issue coming from that, right? This is the principle of reaping and sowing. So I definitely agree with you when it comes to that. And really, these symptoms, these causes that you're seeing, these effects that you're seeing are really helpful, actually, because if we're willing to face them head on and start recognizing all of these layers, for some people, that's the only way that they're ever going to get free. And so actually, this is the best thing that maybe could have happened to you, was that you ended up, in Dr. Ben's office, recognizing I've got these filters that have to come down. Can you talk a little bit? I know that this is kind of like off subject, but what about people who, in the traditional doctor's office, they say like, do you have any heart disease in your family, or do you have this in your family? Like, what is that all about? What are we doing here with that? And why is that? Why do doctors want to even know that? What does that have to do with the individual?
Yeah. Well, we're trained in the gene theory model. So doctors are under the assumption that heart disease, cancer, like the BRCA gene for cancer, if you got that, then that's it. You're going to have breast cancer. Well, we think that for heart disease and everything. So in that model, in that mindset, family history is pretty important. Now, understanding epigenetics, you can keep the BRCA gene turned off. You can keep the Alzheimer's gene turned off. You can keep them all turned off. And honestly, what we learn, we do inherit our genes from our parents, but we also inherit a lot of the epigenetic stuff. Like, did your parents eat processed food or real food? Did they teach you that, value that? Did you eat out all the time? Did your parents drink soda or alcohol every night to unwind? How did they handle bad news when they got a letter in the mail from the IRS, or they get a phone call from a bill collector? What was your dad's response? Were bedtimes important? You stay up late? Was exercise a priority? Was being outside? All the things that we don't really think about, but the culture that you grew up in that household, you tend to continue to live that way. And those are the lifestyle things that we talk about. This can sound crazy too. I saw a study, and it was some country in the Far East, where they didn't have furniture. They didn't have chairs. They all sat on the floor. Well, when you sit on the floor for everything, for conversation, for meals, for just everything, you're engaging a whole different set of muscles that allow you to have more flexibility. And actually, there's a study that shows for longevity purposes, a better predictor of longevity is called the sit to rise, where you're standing, you just stand up and sit down in the Indian style, crisscross, and then stand back up. Can you do that without using your hands? Well, these guys can, because they're sitting on the floor all the time, keeping those tendons, ligaments, and muscles engaged, stretch, flexible, strength, all that. That's a better predictor of longevity than blood pressure and cholesterol. And I'm just giving that as an example. I mean, it's kind of extreme, but if you grew up in a home where people sat on the ground a lot, that's going to impact which genes actually turn on and off. So to answer your question, doctors don't understand the epigenetics. They think it's all genetics. It's not. So they go down that whole thing. But even the mindset of the patient, and especially the doctors reinforcing it, your grandma had breast cancer, your mom had breast cancer, you're probably going to have breast cancer. We better check the BRCA gene. Just you thinking, oh no, I'm going to have breast cancer, actually can predispose you for breast cancer. The power of the mind, it's huge. One more example, the longevity plan. That's a book by Dr. Day. I forget his first name, but longevity plan. He's a cardiologist. Dr. Day goes to China. He's in his mid to late 40s. He's on like 8 or 9 meds, pharmaceuticals, sick guy, middle-aged sick guy. And he's giving a medical lecture in China. And his colleagues over there recognize, man, you're overweight, you're inflamed, you're red, your blood pressure, all these meds you're taking. They said, you're not healthy. You need to go out and study this village in China. They nicknamed it the Longevity Village. And the people that lived in this village lived to be in their hundreds, 110, 112, 115, and still active, disease-free. So Dr. Day went to the village, studied them. What did they eat? What did they drink? How they exercise? What time did they go to sleep? And just all the things. But he also brought needles and test tubes and drew a bunch of blood from each one of them, and he looked for all those genes. The BRCA gene for breast cancer, the gene for Alzheimer's, the gene for heart disease, all these genetic predisposition genes. And they had all those genes in the same ratio that we do in the West, but they didn't have any of the diseases. Just another example to drive home that epigenetic influence trumps the genetic influence. But I didn't learn that in medical school, and so your doctor doesn't either. So he's still under the old model of let's talk about your family history and let's worry about that. And I'm not saying genes aren't in play at all. They are in play, but it's a combination of epigenetic and genetic, and you learn a lot of the epigenetic lifestyle and thinking from mom and dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting to me how people pick doctors because they're just like, oh, they got a degree. But, when you're picking a business mentor, I would tell people don't go to someone whose business is failing. And so you're kind of like the face of what you believe about health, and how many doctors are so unhealthy in their bodies because they work crazy hours, they don't prioritize eating well and getting outside and all of that stuff, and some of it because of their profession. But I always found that to be really bizarre, is like, how am I going to this person for medical advice when they can't make it to basic health? Yeah. Like, what is that?
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you. And it's important for people to understand these doctors went to med school, I'm sure, with the right intention. Maybe some didn't, but most in my class did. They wanted to help people.
Sure.
And we just didn't know that we were just going to be trained in a big matching game. That's all it is. We match symptoms to a label, like headaches. There's only a certain number of there's migraine headaches, tension headaches, cluster headaches, sinus headaches. That's pretty much it. So when someone comes in with a complaint of headache, you just ask a few questions that classify that. Is it a pressure under your eyes and you've had a lot of snot and a little fever? Or is it a tight band around your head like a squeeze? Or is it an ice pick going behind your eyeball? Migraine versus sinus versus tension headache. Well, then we're done. Once we make the match your symptoms to this label, we're done. Because then there's a pharmaceutical that goes to every label. There's a different one for migraine, a different one for tension, a different one for sinus. And we write the prescription, and there you go. So whether it's chest pain or fill in the blank, these doctors only know this superficial matching game to a pharmaceutical. And so we just got to understand they can only give you from what they've been given. And what they've been given is very, very narrow. And this has been since 1910 when the Flexner report came into the United States medical education system, and it cleared out all the natural healers and said allopathic is what we're going to license and approve and make legal and lawful with the AMA. And that's it. Allopathic MD schools and hospitals and laboratories and research facilities got all the money. Everybody else, naturopaths, herbalists, chiropractors, homeopathic, all the natural healers were moved out. And now we're 100 years removed from that. People don't even understand that there used to be healing modalities that worked with the body. And now we're only exposed to allopathic, pharmaceutical, synthetic, chemical based that's actually just suppressing stuff. So understand you're in that system. It gets the worst outcomes. We are the sickest, die the youngest, the worst infant mortality rates, the worst maternal mortality rates, the worst overall mortality rates. We die the youngest. We have the most disease, take the most medicine, spend the most money to come in dead last place. We need to understand this and then look for an alternative.
I think we all had a great opportunity in the last 4 years to really look at what is being pushed. When we are being told you need to take a shot, you need to go do this, and you should not go outside, you should not have sunlight, you should not have socialization, you should not do these things. I think we need to start looking into why would somebody even have that thought, right? We need to start doing a little bit of critical thinking. And then when we can do that, then we don't just take things at face value. We understand if you're the cure, if I'm the cure, I need to find somebody who's going to match what I believe is right for my body and for my family's health as well. And for me personally, that's just always how I've done it, because I'm also a veteran and I went through the VA system a long time ago whenever I got out of the Army, and just experiencing when I know it's not going to work for my body what they're telling me to do, but that's what you have to do. You have to do that. And they, one of the unfortunate things is that they take away really your right to, if you disagree with them, you're paying out of pocket. You're either doing it that way or you're paying out of pocket. And but I realized quick and in a hurry, like, I'm the investment. So, okay, I'm going to pay out of pocket because that's ridiculous. I'm not going to do the things that they were telling me were going to fix me when I knew for a fact it wasn't going to work with me. And finding somebody who believes in that you already contain the things that are necessary for you to have life and life to the fullest. I think that's so important, no matter what it is, whether it's your physical health, your mental health, any kind of health at all. You need to find somebody who believes that you are the thing, right?
Absolutely. Looking back historically, my great 10 greats back, granddad, he was one of the separatists, one of the guys that separated from the Church of England, because reading he and his preacher, their memoirs and their books, they just wanted to worship God the way they saw fit. And the Church of England said, no, you can't do that. So they had to separate, and ended up on the Mayflower and came to Plymouth. And he was voted reelected 30 times, I think, 30 years in a row. He was governor of Plymouth.
That is amazing. What a history.
Yeah, William Bradford. But as I look back and look at some of that, I mean, these guys, even before him, just to publish a Bible in English. Where I'm going is there was something was between us and our Creator. Between us and God were these religious people who had a Latin Bible, and the commoners couldn't even read it. You had to go to the religious person to get forgiven of sins, to see what the Bible said, to anything, to have any relationship at all with God. I got to go through this guy. And then, of course, Reformation came. And now the English Bible, at the cost of, these guys are burned at the stake for producing an English Bible that the commoners could actually read. But Reformation came. Now the commoners have access to God. So, okay, here we go. Enlightenment. Now we're going to go with science and intellect in the age of enlightenment and scientism. And now it seems like the doctors, the scientists are now between, I'd say, the commoners, but the people and their creator. I have to look to a scientist and a evidence-based, peer-reviewed journal article before I'll say yes to go a certain way. Or if you can't show me all the scientific evidence, then there's no way I'm going to go that way. And we've got this block again now between the creator and us. And you're right, it's in us. And that thing that resonates in you when you hear the truth. When I do a lecture on stomach acid, how acid reflux is from not enough stomach acid, not too much. God designed your body's pH in your stomach to be between 1 and 2. Battery acid's 1.5. That's the design God put in you for your stomach to be at a battery acid 1.5. That's super, super acidic. And when it is that acidic, this valve between your food pipe, your esophagus, and your stomach, it'll be tightly squeezed shut. My kids can hang upside down on the monkey bars and they're not going to have acid reflux. Well, how can that be? Because that valve's tightly squeezed shut. Keeps all the acid down here in the stomach where it's supposed to be, where you have a nice mucus layer lining your stomach. You never feel that acid. When you don't have enough acid, actually, and the pH starts to climb up to 3 or 4 or 5, that triggers the valve to loosen up. And here it comes. Your stomach contents come up. A pH less than 7 is still acidic. So even at a 4 or a 5, it's going to burn. It's going to hurt. But it's actually from not enough stomach acid. You got to get those stomach acid pumps going again. And once you do, that valve will close again. You'll be like you were in your youth. Real acidic stomach to break down all your food really well. Anyways, there's a little more to that on a whiteboard. You can really map that out, draw that out. But what I'm going at is people will go, aha, that makes sense. And that's what I'm saying. These things that just make sense, they resonate in you, go with it. That's the truth from your creator resonating in your spirit because you've got a piece of him in you and it will resonate. It is in you to be well. And when fear comes, fear will say, oh no, you got to go to a smart doctor. You got to go to Hopkins, Mayo, or Harvard. Oh no, oh no, oh no. Anytime fear comes in, time out.
Yeah.
Pause. And I'm not saying you don't go to Hopkins, but you go there when you have peace about going there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So fear comes in, time out. There's a germ that's overtaken the whole world that's going to kill half the world. Time out. That sounds like fear.
Yeah.
Every time there's fear, I got asked to testify in the Texas Senate during COVID about the shot. And at the end, the senator asked me about natural immunity. And so I got to talk about diet and sunshine and exercise and all the things. And then I got to speak about the fear. Because fear will absolutely cripple your immune system. Fear shuts everything down. I mean, it is absolutely deadly. And that's what we would do with these patients that would come see us. Pretty darn sick, oxygen levels super low, probably need to be admitted. We deal with the fear. I had one lady in particular, her oxygen levels were in the 70s, but she was just so fearful. Young lady, relatively healthy otherwise. I'm like, why is this lady? I mean, she was sick, but we dealt with the fear. Oxygen levels came up in the 90s, turned her oxygen cannula down to 0. Didn't tell her that. I just kept watching her and praying over her and talking to her. And she stayed in the high 90s from there on with no oxygen just from fear. It's a huge, huge deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And that's the real pandemic, okay, yeah. is that people are forgetting that they were created in the image of the creator to create in the image of the creator. That's the real pandemic here, is that we have allowed fear to influence our decisions and to create walls and walls and walls between us and the one who created us. And we are designed to be in full union, full communion with our creator. So it's a real problem. And when you're talking about, actually during the pandemic, I was outspoken about what is going on here because I could see this from a mile away. This is exactly what a narcissist does. A narcissist comes in and tells you that you can't survive without me. I've got the cure, and only I have it. You'll never have it without me, and I'm the thing. and you have to like me. You know, the devil was the first narcissist, and it says that he was kicked out of heaven for the multitude of his traffickings. He was the middleman. He was trying to make a divide between God and the rest of the creation. And we gotta look at that, because this is absolute. The pandemic is the acceptance of narcissism on an extreme level, and turning a blind eye to that if it's not happening to you as an individual. So it's a real problem. But I told people that if you are so fearful, then you should wear a mask, because it will ease your fear, not because it will keep any disease out or germs out. You know, I'm sure that you've seen these painters go in and do painting with the N95 masks, and their face is all paint, because the mask is not do anything, but it will cause you to be your level of fear will go down. And then if that's the case, you should wear it. That was my take on it. I didn't participate, but that was my take, because if you're so fearful, your immune system is it's going to be shot completely.
Yeah. There's actually a study they produced, what were the top factors that would increase your odds of ending up in the hospital. And I think top was obesity, but right below it is like 49% to 48% was an underlying anxiety disorder. When you're just in that state of anxiety, anxiousness, and fear, it absolutely cripples the immune system. So I'm right there with you.
And this really brings me kind of full circle then to ask you about some issues that a lot of my clients and my audience will have when they're leaving a narcissist, and recognizing, number one, a lot of the problems that you're experiencing physically really have come in because of fear. The narcissist ultimately holds the lid on what you feel you're comfortable to do, what you feel allowed to do in terms of caring for yourself and making decisions in any kind of thing that relates to your life. And when that happens, that is honestly why there's so many physical issues as well. So I had some people write in when I announced that you were coming on the channel, and I was wondering if you would just answer a couple of these questions. Okay, so the first one, can you address something in the natural that would help heal the emotional wounds inflicted by the abuser? So when we are addressing the spirit, soul, and body, what could aid in this process?
Yep. So in the natural realm, one of the first consequences when you go into fear and fight or flight or stress, it's going to attract iron into the cell, and it's going to kick magnesium out of the cell. And then a whole lot of consequences come from that. So just getting magnesium back into the body, there's books written on magnesium, the mood cure. It's such a mood stabilizer, and a calming agent. It can help sleep. It's amazing. So in the physical, we tend to burn through magnesium really quickly when we're under that anxiety, tense, stress, fight or flight. So just get some magnesium back into you. Another one would be your microbiome. That's your gut bugs. The bacteria in your gut play a huge role in making your serotonin, your dopamine, your melatonin, these neurochemistry. It's actually made in your gut by the gut bugs, and then it's transported up to the brain. Well, in that fight or flight mode, that actually shuts down your stomach acid production, so that pH will rise. That affects your microbes in your gut negatively, really decimates them. So if you can bring your microbiome back up, the diversity of that population, get it diversified and get it up. And we do that through probiotics, fermented foods, kombucha and sauerkraut and different ferments. Getting that diversity back will be huge. There's a whole book written on this. It's called Gut and Psychology Syndrome, Dr. Natasha McBride, and she explains all the science behind it. Another one, B vitamins, B1, B3, all the B vitamins, so you can just get a B complex. We burn through B vitamins really quickly when we're under stress, and we don't absorb B vitamins in our gut very well unless our pH is optimal, and it's not when you're under stress. So there are things we can do supplementally, dietarily, that can really move the needle quite a bit. And that's just in nutrition. Other nutrients, not really food, but sunshine. Sunshine's actually a nutrient in the body, and you need that sun. There's photoreceptors in your mitochondria. Photons, particles of light, enter through your skin and impact your mitochondria and impact your DNA. Even just looking outside the window at green space, I'm looking out my window at some green trees. There's studies that show just looking at a green space is beneficial on your neurotransmitters, much less getting out in it and letting that sun come through your skin and through your eyeballs, through your retina. Sleep, a lot of people get into sleep disturbance. There was a study that showed a 100% cure rate of insomniacs when they went camping for 7 days with zero artificial light. They went to bed with sunset, got up with sunrise, and after 7 days, it reset their circadian rhythm just from sunlight exposure, no artificial light. Now, that may not be practical for people just leave artificial light and go camping for 7 days, but the point is get outside. So you can get a lot done. Exercise releases so many endorphins. There's a number of studies about depression and exercise and how those endorphins work better than Prozac, Lexapro, Wellbutrin, and all those. So a lot of things you can do in the physical and the natural.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a lot of really good information, and definitely enough for people to get started with that. And I'm actually just reminded of how intentional God was when he created us. He made all the things that, already for us. This environment is specific for us to live in. We spend an awful lot of time indoors, but really we were created, men were created from the dirt. So chances are that we should be around it, pretty high there. Can you explain the connection between abuse and autoimmune diseases and how a holistic approach can alleviate symptoms and potentially reverse the effects?
Okay. So 80% of your immune system is in the gut, just on the other side of the intestinal wall. It's called the GALT, G-A-L-T, stands for gut-associated lymphatic tissue. So 80% of your troops are sitting right there just on the other side of your intestine. And if you think about it, your intestine is really just one long water hose. There's a hole at the top and a hole at the bottom, and it's lined with skin, just like the skin of my cheek. If I went inside my cheek, it's still skin. And that skin keeps going all the way down the esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, rectum to the toilet. Well, that skin on the inside of us is very, very important to keep the integrity of that skin. They're called tight junctions. Those cells that line your intestine, they're kind of glued together. It's called tight junction. Well, that tight junction can open up, and then things leak across that intestinal wall, kind of like a soaker hose in your garden, all those million little water droplets coming through those tiny little holes. Your gut turns into a soaker hose. It's called leaky gut. When you lose the integrity or the protective layer inside your intestine. And you do that mostly through stress and processed food. When your stomach acid levels are off from stress, when you don't nourish properly, you eat chemical and antibiotic-laden foods. It really disturbs the protective layer of microbes on your inner wall of your gut, and it opens those tight junctions. So you have all kinds of stuff coming across, and it's hitting. It's like the Border Patrol. Remember, 80% of your troops are right there inside that wall of your intestine, and you're just bombarding your Border Patrol with all kinds of foreign material that's leaking across this gut, hyperpermeable gut wall. And so those troops start making antibodies to all the foreign material that's coming across. Well, those antibodies and a mass production of antibodies start to cross-react with some of your tissue, like your thyroid. So in the natural, you've got to really work on gut health, restoring the integrity of that lining, close the tight junctions, regrow the lining, all the good bacteria in that lining, which means real food, probably some probiotics, some other supplements to heal the gut. But ultimately, you got to get your stomach acid back. That means you got to get your thinking right, because fight or flight, your body's saying, when you're in fight or flight mode, your body's saying, I don't need to worry about digesting my food right now. I need to worry about saving my life. So it shunts its energy to your cardiovascular system. Your heart rate goes up, your breathing rate goes up, your pupils dilate, your muscles get flexed, ready to fight or flight. And it shuts down your stomach acid pumps and the rest of your GI tract on purpose, because we need to save our life. we've got to get out of that mode in order to heal the gut, to get the immune system in the gut to calm down, quit making all these antibodies that drive autoimmune disease. So pretty much all integrative holistic practitioners agree that leaky gut is part of autoimmunity. So that's in the natural. In the supranatural, outside the natural, these thoughts, it could sound crazy if you're totally intellectual, black and white, left brain, Western trained, don't understand the intuitive and spiritual as much, and not new age. But our thoughts, like I'm rejected, there's an energetic something that goes on with that. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. The power of life and death in the tongue. All issues of life flow out of the heart. There's something there about our heart and our beliefs, what we believe about ourselves. And there can actually be a self-hatred. I hate my guts. And I know it can sound crazy again, but there's something there with our thinking, not loving ourselves. And I think it boils down to we don't see God clearly. We have question marks about God. Is he really there? Does he love me? Is he going to show up? He didn't show up this other time. Does he hate me? Do I hate him? Am I mad at him? Is he mad at me? So many question marks there. And then we get a question mark on who we see ourselves as. If you see yourself as worthless or rejected or responsible, you take on all this responsibility that's not yours to take on, but we see ourselves a certain way. That actually drives autoimmunity. So, I mean, there's a lot to it. That's a good hour lecture or more just to connect all those dots, but there's definitely a relationship.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask you just my question. Do you ever subscribe or prescribe to your clients that they need to go do meditation?
Yeah, but I'd clarify that. I don't believe we need to just empty ourselves, which some people would say meditation would be emptying yourself, emptying your thoughts and your mind and all that. The way I believe is there's the spirit of truth that brings the truth, which joy and peace will accompany that. And there's other spirits that bring lies, yeah, and fear and anxiousness and other emotions come with that. So if we just empty ourselves, then I think we're more vulnerable to any kind of thought or belief or spirit or whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to meditate on what I believe is the truth, which comes from an ancient book that was written over 1,500 years by 40 different authors and
still a
3
bestseller
continents and 3 languages and all that stuff. But that's what I believe. So I'm going to go meditate on that.
Yeah. Yep. Still a bestseller. So yes, in my coaching, I actually have meditations for people to go listen to. And really because I think chaos becomes so familiar to people that they don't know what is peace. And so it feels uncomfortable for them to even get in peace, and so then it becomes very difficult for them to follow their instinct of where is peace, because I've never even experienced it, or that feels really uncomfortable, really unnatural. And so like if you could just sit, actually I read this somewhere, I can't remember where, but talking about I was studying on the vagus nerve, and they were talking about if your vagus nerve can't be online active enough, you end up in the sympathetic nervous system getting activated and you're all over the place, then your body is controlling your mind, which controls everything else then, instead of your spirit controlling your mind, which controls your body. And so one of the things is that people can sit quietly long enough to even know what is peace, to know what is truth, to be able to hear that, because it often comes in a still small voice, is what I find, right? Is still coming in the still small voice. And if you're not still, and if you're too busy, loud, then you're not going to hear, and that's not going to resonate with you, because it's just overshadowed by so much other stuff.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah. I mean, distractions, all this extra noise, all these things we got to go, do. And we need to just be. And people don't know how to do that.
Yeah. So what about for somebody who is having sleep problems, aside from going, and I love that study where people just go out into nature and everything just goes back to regulating its own self. Everything ends up back at a place of homeostasis. Besides that, are there things that you could recommend for people who, and specifically for people who cannot sleep because of anxiousness, who have these racing thoughts, the toxic rumination, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So there is, again, management versus resolution. So I'd want to kind of delineate that out. There's lots of different management techniques, including pharmaceuticals. I don't tend to go to those. There's natural versions, and there's lots of different blends, herbal blends with valerian root or CBD or magnesium. Magmind from Jarrow, it's a really good one. L-theanine, GABA. There's all. If you go to a good health food store and just look at a sleep aid, it's going to have these common things in there, and a lot of times that'll help. A sleep sanctuary, kind of. Let me explain that a little bit. This sleep hygiene. When your optic nerve is getting stimulated by these artificial lights all night, your screens, it's actually suppressing that melatonin production. So we need to learn to start turning these lights down or off, screen, blue blockers, different things to get this blue light that's stimulating us to calm down. EMFs in your room, if you could tone them down, that would mean don't sleep with your phone right by you. That phone's an antenna receiving Wi-Fi signals all the time. That can impact your sleep. So don't do that. Keep it away from you, or even turn your Wi-Fi off at night. Put it on a timer where it shuts itself off, where you don't have so much Wi-Fi effect right there by your head or in your room even, and try to keep a quiet sleep sanctuary going. Cold plunge helps some people sleep. It sounds crazy. It might be extreme, but you get an ice bath and you sit in that for 3 minutes or so, and it really can stimulate a good night's sleep the next day. Exercising during the day, maybe not right before bed, it could rev you up. Little things that everyone kind of knows but maybe forgets. Don't drink too much caffeine. Those energy drinks, they can linger, keep you awake. And drinking, you're trying to stay hydrated to be healthy, so you're drinking a ton of water. I had a guy just the other day, he couldn't sleep, and I was thinking of all the things we could try on him. But then I remember, wait, how much water are you drinking right before bed? And it was a lot. So, hey, let's just back off on that a little bit. And he was just getting up at night to urinate. So sometimes it's a simple thing like that, the temperature. They're just waking up because it's hot. Okay, let's cool it down. So just that sleep hygiene things, you don't want to miss something simple.
Yeah, absolutely. I love all of those examples. And I love that the fact most of them can be done right now today without doing much. Getting a cold shower. If your shower can get under 50 degrees, that would be great. Sit under that for 3 minutes. And before we wrap this up, I would just love to hear kind of a recap on the importance of understanding identity and how identity will impact not only your thinking and the decisions that you're going to make for your health, but also, if you're in court with a narcissist or moving forward after, maybe you've actually left the narcissist many years ago, or you've gotten out of a toxic situation, but you're still making the same decisions as if you were still with them, reliving that. So I would just love to hear from a medical perspective, in your opinion, what is the impact of somebody getting right with their identity?
Well, I don't know how much I'd have to add from a medical perspective, because the medical field that I know of doesn't really have much to offer there. We have drugs to try to tamp down symptoms, and I'm not condemning anyone that needs to do that temporarily, but I'm going to encourage you to go more on the spiritual journey. And really, it's just take some honesty. Pretty much everybody, I think, has some amount of question mark on their creator, and it can be all the way from there's not one, or I don't think there is, or if there is. And I used to be there, actually, although I was raised in a Christian home. It was religious. And I had tons of questions because I sat under a different religion. 12 years of higher education, Darwinian evolutionary biology teaching will put doubt and unbelief into you, or it did for me. So getting these honest confessions going between you and God, even if you're not sure he exists, even if you're mad at him, or even if whatever question, then that's the kind of honesty I'm talking about. Whatever's in your heart. And this happened with me. My wife and I couldn't get pregnant for 24 months. The first 12 months we tried on our own, then we're officially infertile. So the next 12 months we tried with a fertility specialist. None of that worked. It was 24 months of a roller coaster every month on our emotions and a negative pregnancy test times 24. And then I read in the Word, seek ye first the kingdom. And it hit me that day. And I'd read that verse before, seek the kingdom first. But that day it was different, resonated different in me. And I went and got Jamie and I said, look at this. This says seek the kingdom first. And we're seeking a baby every single month. That's our number one priority for the last 24 months. And there's some other things we're seeking, a small town country doctor and some other things. But this baby, it's huge. It's definitely first. And I said, so we're not doing what that verse says, and we need to repent for that. So we started talking to God about it, and I said, hey, we're sorry. Forgive us. But my very next breath, I said, well, I don't know what the kingdom is, and that verse says to seek it. So you're going to have to show me what's the kingdom. And my very next breath, I said, and you know what? I'm not even sure you're real. Darwin seems more real than you, and evolution seems more real than Genesis. And so I've got a lot of doubts. And I know I'm talking to you, but honestly, I'm not sure you're even real or you're there or you're listening. I'm kind of desperate, so I'm doing this. I remembered a verse from Sunday school class years ago. Jesus talking to this daddy, and the daddy said, well, I believe, but help me with my unbelief. So I said that. God, I believe a little bit at least because I'm talking to you, but I've got a lot of unbelief and I need help with that. So that's just this honest confession of where I was at. And, I didn't have trauma. I had great parents and great home life and great everything, but there's still some lies came in and definitely a lot of doubt came in through higher education. And I can imagine, and I've seen a lot of patients where there are big traumas that would make me question the goodness of God and God's love and his nature and his character. So there's a lot there that people need to just truly be honest with. I think if we don't see that our Creator for who he really is, and I'll just, a little bit touch on what I told my daughter the other day, my 16-year-old, when she said, well, why did God allow all this bad stuff? And it basically came down to, well, God is love and he created us to love. And there's no such thing. The virtue called love does not exist if we don't have choice. If there's no choice, then we're AI, programmed robots. We're just doing what the program says to do. We have to have choice to be able to express love, and love's this ultimate virtue. And we need to love our Creator, love ourselves, love our neighbor as ourselves. And that's it. Jesus said, just do those three and you're good. Everything else will fall into place. And so it's like almost God rolled the dice, so to speak. Not really. I mean, he knows, but we had to have this thing called choice. And with that choice, there's consequences. I told her, you were late to work the other day and you pressed your gas pedal a little hard. So you broke the speed limit a little bit. And, you had a decision to make there. You didn't want to make your boss mad because you're kind of people pleasing a little bit. You had a good reason you're late. You're helping mom out. You could have just stayed at the speed limit, told your boss, suffered the consequence if there was one. Probably wouldn't have been one. But you decided in your free will to push that gas pedal. God didn't do that. You did that. We have a choice. That's a simple example, but humans have choices. And there's an enemy, an adversary who comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And he will present a thought to us. You're rejected. You're unworthy. And we buy the lie. And then we operate from there. And it affects our neighbor. It affects ourselves. It affects how we see God. It's what he did with Eve in the garden. Put a question mark on God. That put a question mark on who God said Eve was. Eve, you're the mother of all living. No, I'm naked and ashamed. Who called you naked? I didn't call you naked. Who are you listening to? We listen to the accuser. We believe it about ourselves and about God. It's not the truth. And that causes us to, corporately, as all human beings, we start operating out of these false identities of false belief about ourselves and about God. So anyways, that to me, that is so powerful to clear that up. And Jamie Winship really talks about this, confession to God about what you think about him. And then ask him, what do I think about myself? That's not true. That you see me a certain way, but I don't believe it. I see myself a different way. I call myself rejected. How do I see myself that's not true? And you start going through that and get all that cleared up. And then I believe God will speak to you, and he will tell you who he saw you as when he created you in the womb, before he put you in the womb. And when you're walking in that, you just wake up and you just be. Just breathe and be who he says you are, not who the world says you are, not who you say you are. So clearing that up is humongous for your health, for your mitochondrial health, for your physical body health.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm thinking of happens often is that when people are trying to get out of a narcissistic relationship, for a long time they're trying to not do that, and so they're trying to put on a face, and they're trying to do all these things and make it look a certain type of way, and like everything's fine over here, and meanwhile it's internal turmoil every day, all the days. And I think about all of the red flags that there were to tell you, hey, get out now, next day, get out now, next day, get out now, all of that kind of stuff, and how that's true also in our physical bodies, giving us warning signs like, hey, don't eat that, or don't go to that place, or go to that place, or go outside, or stop watching that and go over here, or whatever. And all of those little signs that we ignore. And that's why I love so much whenever I first watched your YouTube channel, you were talking about no such thing as disease, only consequence. And that resonated so strongly for me personally because of the journey that I'd been on the last year, but also just how I know free will is saying, like, there's going to be something good that comes and something negative that comes. And there's, passages in Deuteronomy that talk specifically about that. If you do this, this is what you get. And if you do this, this is what you get. Because it's all on a system. It's not like, oh, maybe I'll get that. No, there's a law. Everything is, there's a rule that is governing every single choice that we make, already has an outcome predetermined to it. Like if I drop a ball, it goes down. It doesn't never go up. If I drop it down, it goes down because there's gravity. Doesn't matter if I'm, in Houston or if I'm in Beijing. Like the same thing happens to everybody. And so I think once we can pull back out of our own individual situation, see kind of the marvelous way that we were created, and this environment for us specific, how marvelous it was created, we start seeing where we violated these laws, and it becomes easier to say, okay, correct me, help me, right? I think I know, I think I believe, but help where I truly just don't know, right? And I need your assistance in this area. And the other thing that I want to say about that too is you can't use somebody else's, or you can in a little bit of ways, but in a lot of ways you can't use somebody else's relationship. You have to build this one yourself. This has to be your own journey. This has to be your own testimony, because at the end of the day, we could have the same situation, but we're viewing it two different ways. And if we don't each get the answer that we need for our specific viewpoint, the one answer isn't going to satisfy both of us, because we're both made uniquely. And so I love I always look at myself, I always tell people too, like, I'm a coach, not a crutch. I'm going to come alongside of you, but you are going to have to learn how to walk on your own. You're not going to be able to lean on me the whole time, because my testimony is mine. This is something that I walked on my own path, and you have to do that yourself, and you get to do that yourself. It's an amazing journey. And I like what you're talking about too with your practice, just coming alongside and helping people to see the truth of who they are and who God is and how they were created and how their body is designed, and helping them understand the relationship that they have with all of the decisions that they make. Whether you chose to eat a salad, you chose to eat a pizza every day of your life for 20 years, you get consequences for both of those decisions.
Yeah, you're right. That law is sowing and reaping. And that's what that mentor of mine at the very beginning, when he told me, hey, the body's designed a certain way. You've got to abide by the laws that God put into creation. The physical laws and the spiritual laws, they all apply. We've got to understand them. My people are destroyed from lack of knowledge. So we need to gain that knowledge and then walk in it.
Yeah, it's so true. So I just want to say that if people want to follow you, all of your links are in the description of this video already. They can follow you on YouTube, follow you on Instagram. Your website is listed there. Could you tell us, just before we leave as well, some things that you might be able to help people with? If they reach out to you, like what kind of things would they reach out to you for, or could you help them with?
Everything. I mean, people call us for you name it. You have a disease, quote unquote disease, and it can be just high blood sugar and acid reflux, or it could be an autoimmune disease. It could be cancer, heart disease, fibromyalgia, mystery disease. We have quite a few people show up with just some mystery symptoms. No one's really able to diagnose it. And I promise you, I am not the smartest doctor in town. I'm not the smartest I'm smart enough to know I don't know it all. And this is not, I mean, I'm telling you, we rely on the body's own design. The healing is in you. And so you can have the craziest, worst symptoms in the world and diseases in the world, and the body can reverse it, and it will. And honestly, the hardest thing to convince people is our health coaches. We call them wellness navigators. They're going to teach nutrition, hydration, movement, and peace. And if you can really walk with those navigators, you won't even need the medical side of our practice. So, but if you do, it's fine. It's no condemnation on that. I'm just saying the truth really is in the diet and the lifestyle and the thinking. So find someone who believes that, understands that, and walk with them. It could be us, but it could be lots of other folks out there too that are being led by the spirit of truth.
That's actually a really good point to make. So you're saying that Veritas Wellness does more of the health coaching. Veritas Medical is obviously then more for the disease specific type of.
And really symptom management is just a green version of that. So yeah, and used to be Veritas Medical housed it all. And when it became so clear that no, we can separate this thing, people really get better when they're doing the diet and lifestyle stuff, but they don't need to see a nurse practitioner or a doctor to get diet and lifestyle education. But they do need to see a doctor and nurse practitioner to get symptoms managed if they're just so symptomatic and they have peace about and feel like they need to do that. Fine. We have lots of different supplements and IVs and gadgets and spend more money doing it. And it's not the answer, but it's okay if you need it. And we don't mind doing that, but we're going to point you right back to the truth, which is the wellness side.
Wow. Well, Dr. Ben, thank you so much for joining me today. It was truly an honor to have this conversation with you. I know that you've touched thousands of lives by being on this channel, and I just appreciate your time so much for you to, not just the time that you spent with me, but the time that you spent getting all of the knowledge that you shared with us today.
Well, you're very welcome, Angel. Thank you for having me on. I love to be able to spread the truth. So thank you for the platform.
Absolutely. Okay, you guys, I'll see you next week in my regular video. And again, be sure to check out Dr. Ben's resources. Again, his links are all in the description of this video already. We'll see you soon.